It's really great to be here tonight. And one thing about me, because these sort of events, normally you have to sort of reveal something of yourself to engage with the audience. That's what everyone says, you know, you're going to be yourself. So the one thing about me that's probably quite important to say is that for quite a long time, I've actually been thinking about a career in stand-up comedy. And you know, and quite seriously about it. So when I was talking to my wife about this, she said, you know, are there any events that you can sort of go to test it out? And I said, well, there's this thing in Reading, the marketing meetup. I said, I think I could probably parade with a kind of semi-serious topic like marketing brainpower and then actually sort of switch halfway through and do some stand-up. So I hope that's all right with everybody, that what you've come for isn't what you're going to get. Is that all right? So, but in all seriousness, the three-legged dog is absolutely true. I do have a three-legged dog. He's called Chester. I bought him actually during lockdown because, you know, like in lockdown, the price of dogs went through the roof. But of course, 3 legs, 25% off. There you go. Right. And that's it for the stand-up today. But if you want to join me, I'm on a stand-up comedy course on the 15th and 16th in Bath, where they teach you how to do stand-up comedy. So next time I come back, maybe I will kind of hijack it. But let's get on to the topic of brainpower. And I think the essence of this today isn't really to kind of teach you anything, isn't to kind of give you the answer, but it's more about inspiring you and prompting you to think differently about how you do your everyday job as a marketer. Because I think nowadays, with so much technology out there, there's so much talk about what AI can and can't do and how it's going to cost people jobs, how it's going to make things easier and quicker. And you can just see already there's kind of a glimpse of, you know, the effort that people are having to put in to get stuff out the door is pretty minimal. But when you see what goes out the door a lot of the time, you look at it and go, who thought of that? You know, and that's all about your brain. So today is really about kind of inspiring you a bit. Just to kind of give you a bit of background on me. So I started my career as a B2C marketer. I worked for Cadbury. I was the brand manager of Cadbury's Dairy Milk back in the day, giving someone a hamper. I don't know what it was for, but it was, you know, CDM brand manager. I gave them a special presentation at Cadbury World. The funny thing is, I have no recollection of that whatsoever. You know, that was it was a time when you could go to work with a hangover and it wouldn't be frowned on. But I did okay. They gave me a company car. I got to look after cream eggs. It's really hard to drive, really hard. You can't see round the back. It's not even like an HGV. Really hard. And I had a fleet of 5 cars that I managed and a balloon. But the problem with the balloon, believe it or not, because it's egg-shaped, it's the wrong way round, so it doesn't fly very well. So whoever came before me thought, brilliant, we're going to buy a cream egg balloon and and we'll take it to all these balloon festivals. And I'd go, why are we not at that balloon festival? And they go, well, the balloon doesn't fly. It's like, oh, we just tether it. And so literally, it didn't fly, they just tethered it. It never took off. Anyway, that's not good thinking, is it? And then I went to work for Unilever, and I had the responsibility of looking after the slag of all snacks, which was great fun. You could only advertise after 9 p.m, and even then it was a bit controversial. I also got to work with a Pepper Army animal, and that was great fun. We did a promotion where it was around one of the football events where we basically mocked up in the back of a van someone's front room like they would be enjoying Euro 96. I think it might have been Euro 96, God, that's a long time ago. And we got buyers to come out of their office to go in the back of this van. It was freezing cold, and we talked to them about Pepper Army, which is incredible. I remember Asda in Leeds, particularly cold day that was, in the back of the van. But I've got fed up with fattening people up, so I thought, let's slim them down. So I got to work on Slim Fast. And then enough of that, and I ended up working for Pizza Express. But enough of me. I then decided to make the move into B2B, and I did that in 2010. I've been working in that space, and I've been trying to sort of bring some of that B2C thinking and creativity and challenge into the world of B2B. And I think it's taken me quite a long time to get the bravery to sort of challenge the conventions, because I think it is, it's difficult. Okay, everyone thinks B2B is boring, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And hopefully some of the stuff you'll see today will help you think differently. So why do I want to talk about brainpower? Why do I think it's really important? I think this is a great sort of phrase, and I use it a lot, and I use it with clients as well. we face really pretty big challenges when we talk about, someone just says, I want to hire a marketing person. Well, to do what? To solve what problem? To what end? And this quote, I think, sums it up, because loads of people just want to get on with this bit, the solutions. What are we going to do? But actually, if you spend some time thinking about the problem, then actually getting to the solution should be much, much quicker. It should be much easier, but it's hard. And I think we have a tendency in our industry to rush into action. That's what we want to do. And that's what makes it a challenge. But, you know, I think the other thing with your brain, or brain power per se, is, you know, if I think back to my days at university, you know, I did some marketing courses with loads of people. Everyone said, oh, I love marketing, brilliant. And then I thought, well, everyone's going to go off and have a career in marketing, but they didn't. You know, most of the people I studied with ended up becoming accountants. And I think about that, and I think, thank goodness we're not accountants in the room here. Because that whole do this, do that, then add that up, there's the answer. And my worry is, if we don't apply our brains, we will end up just going through the, well, you do A, B, C, D, results come. And that's not how it happens. It's not how it happens. It does in some cases, but not all. So that's why I think brain power is super important. So let's take a look at the brain. And I don't profess to be a neuroscientist. I don't profess to be a medical scientist. But, I mean, look at that brain. It's beautiful, isn't it? Steve Martin, man with two brains. And, you know, people say the brain is the most powerful muscle in the body, right? Some people do. Well, technically it's not. It's an organ, but, you know, let's not be distracted. But let's just say it's a muscle. Like anything, you have to work it out. So my point today is to try and illustrate 3 different ways in which you need to work your brains out, and your marketing brain specifically. But when we start thinking out the brain, there are some really good scientific studies. There's lots of kind of anecdotal stuff around left brain, right brain. There's type 1 and type 2 thinking, you know, thinking fast and slow. But we end up in this kind of situation where people sort of say, oh, am I left brain or am I right brain? And how do we deal with that? And particularly, say, in B2B, you know, everything's been on this side for such a long time, and there's much more of a move. And what I see from my experience in B2C is, you know, it's been this way for a long time, and it's great to see more of it coming over. So, but I think when I talk to clients about how does that work, I try to put it in the context of the funnel. And I mean, listen, it's not really a funnel, it's an upside down triangle with 3 things, but let's just imagine it is a real funnel. And at the top, actually, rather than it being a funnel, I like to think of it's more of a vortex, because at this point, that's where everyone's in that, you know, 95% of people are never going to buy your product until then, poof, they come all the way down. But at that top part of the funnel, that's where you've got to start with much more on this side. So I say 20 left, 80 right, because you've got to captivate people. You've got to have something that's interesting. It's something that's relevant. And I'll give you a really good example of this. Anybody remember when they had the mis-selling of PPI, right? Okay? Totally rational. We can get you 3 grand, 5 grand, 10 grand. Super rational. All you have to do is text this number. Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Well, that's kind of completely counterintuitive, isn't it? If you think everyone does stuff based on rational means, why wouldn't you do that? So it's really important, I think, at the top of the funnel to think more emotionally. And as you come down, yes, you can bring more left brain in, and that's kind of, we talk to clients a lot about that. So you've got the left brain, right brain thing, you've got the funnel, and there's probably 3 or 4 kind of core models and ideas that we work with kind of all day, every day, and I'll share them with you as we go through. So what are the 3 areas where you can use your marketing brain? Or where can you do your workout? And it's quite funny, actually, because when we were here, Kirsten was telling me she did 300, what they called, kettlebell swings this morning. Well, she didn't, but it sounded good. It sounded good. So 300 kettlebell swings later, she's been working out. And workout area 1, the 300 kettlebell swings, is looking through the lens of the customer market. Again, this shouldn't be. It's not rocket science, but it's just a discipline of going, need to engage the brain. Second part, thinking really clearly and strategically about where you want to go. because that determines a lot of your decisions and actions. And the third one, applying creativity. So I'm going to tackle each one of those in turn. Now, the best way for me to illustrate this is actually kind of really talk you through just examples of situations where we've talked to customers, talked to clients, and kind of miraculously realised actually they aren't doing this. So I'll give you a really good example. We're talking to a technology company. They've got some ideas for programs they want to run. We're sat down with the team and they say, yeah, this is what we need to do. And we ask the question in the room, talk to any customers about this, and literally, oh, right, more silence. Well, we think it might be a good idea if actually you spoke to some people about this before just launching on them like a fait accompli. And more silence. Yeah, that's a good idea. We should do that. But we then went off, did a pretty, it wasn't an extensive piece of research. It was we probably spoke to half a dozen of their clients. But what we were doing in those conversations is we were applying our brains to pan for kind of little nuggets that were going to inform that program, so that rather than do what they thought was absolutely right, we're just trying to build it on the context that the customer works in, because they won't always tell you the answer first off. This is the type 1, type 2 thing. They'll tell you something, and if you just take that at face value and act on it, well, you could be going down completely the wrong path. So the key with that kind of whole panning exercise is just keep asking, dig a bit deeper, listen a bit more. And when we did that, the outputs we got, and then when we put that into the program, it made the program work probably 10 times harder, because we could say, we've talked to people about it, we've used your input to guide this program. Another good example, we're working with a veterinary software company. Right, brilliant. It's all about our software, and we're going to save people loads of time and money, and all these people want to make money. Left brain, left brain. All these vets want to do is make money. They want to make money. And it's like, hang on a second. Yes, they want to make money. They want to run a business, but really what drives them is looking after people's pets, and it's pretty tough. So if you talk to them all about efficiency and how I'm going to, well, don't do that until you've got their engagement. So use your proposition, use your tone of voice to connect with them in a way that really resonates. And again, when we went back to them, we talked to them about it, said, look at all these software companies, none of them have pictures of animals in their advertising. They have screenshots, because we need screenshots. And it's like, but your screen looks like, your competitor's screen looks like, it's like, well, why don't you have a picture of a dog? They've all got 4 legs, which is a bit disappointing. But although if AI had created that, it might have 5. But but the messaging came out of that. That was driven from looking through the lens of the customer and just thinking, not just going with what everyone else was doing. And we, I see a lot of that. A lot of, the drinking of the Kool-Aid. Oh, we're totally disruptive. We're like nothing else. So we're working with a solar business, renewable energy. They've developed a lightweight solar film that can go everywhere. Totally disruptive, totally low cost. Nothing like it. And we started a project with them. A week in, let me just present to you a competitive picture, literally one slide full of logos, full of strap lines, everybody sounds the same, they all use black, they all use pictures of solar, here's a picture of the sun. It's like you have real competition. But also, using our brains, it's like actually your competition isn't just solar. Your competition is other forms of renewable, but actually, even more than that, people not doing anything. People not changing their behaviour. So why don't you talk about that? Why don't you talk about the fact that the reality is, and here's a fact, I don't know if any of you know this, but there's enough energy from the sun delivered to the earth in 1 hour to power the entire earth for a year, right? 1 hour, enough sunlight energy hits the earth. So why isn't solar everywhere? Oh, that's a good idea. Why don't we talk about that? Rather than our lightweight flexible solar film is helping disrupt the industry. There's a time and a place for that, but you've got to captivate people. So again, that's just come from just exploring and asking the questions. So area 1, customers. Area 2, this is probably the most difficult one, I think, because everyone thinks that they're really clear on where they're going. Everyone says, yeah, I know exactly who we're after. And then you say, well, Who really is your target market? And then they go, it's A, B, C, D, E, F. Well, you're not really clear, are you? And I think that as marketers, our priority is action rather than thinking. So we very rarely say, oh, oof, let's stop, press pause, let's figure out where we want to go. And it being able to do that, to take a step back, to think really logically, am I better putting all of my effort in 2 or 3 small initiatives and hoping to make them scale than go across the board? You know, that needs some really serious consideration and thought. It's a big deal because off the back of that, you're going to be hiring people. You're going to be putting marketing money behind initiatives. You know, you might be recruiting salespeople as well. So as the marketing function, you've got a really big role to play in making some of those big decisions. And a good example of that is we work with Electrolux. This is it's quite a long time ago now. It's 2015 actually. And they have a big part of their business and they sell into kitchen studios, like independent kitchen studios. And they had a program, wasn't particularly successful. They were really struggling to recruit new partners into that program. And what we did with them is we said, well, look, do you have a really clear view of what makes a good partner? Well, and they were a bit wishy-washy. And we got to, these are the criteria that make a good partner. And then we got into them, what would they be looking for? And the clarity that came out of those discussions were things that they hadn't even thought of. So they wanted to know that, for example, when they signed up, that Electrolux were going to come in and they would revamp their studio over a weekend without causing any disruption to their business, that they would give them the same credit limit as their previous supplier. All this stuff they hadn't thought about, but we helped them get clear on that, communicate that, and then basically within 3 years they doubled the size of the business in that channel. They stole loads of share from their big competitor is Neff, Slide and Hide, a bake-off. And that was all they had to offer. Everyone loved the slide and hide. It's like, well, okay, but what's their customer service like? Oh, it's rubbish, but look at the slide and hide. And it wasn't about the slide and hide. Actually, they said, well, Neff are really, really arrogant. They don't treat us very well. They take us for granted. And that then the clarity led to that. Is your partner complacent, not getting what you need, want more from your relationship, ready to switch? And the switching idea, again, thinking, we stole that. We stole that from the banking industry. Okay? So if you think you want to switch current account now, it's really easy. And we said, you need to, the banking industry don't own that. Why don't you take that on board? Because it is a big upheaval. So that strategic clarity that came out of that was phenomenal. And then, funnily enough, the GM of that business, who's now moved to a bathroom business, has literally done exactly the same thing. Because the problems are very similar. So again, steal an idea here, be clear about it, execute it somewhere else. But the one thing that comes out every time when we go through a process of kind of helping them be clear on where they're going, where they want to get from. So for example, Electrolux wanted to get from 15 million to 25 million. The business we're just about to engage with, they're a cleaning company. They want to go from 8 million to 30 million. It's like, well, how? And when you get them in the room and when you talk about the steps you need to take, everyone without fail says, I wish we did this earlier. Either because they spent 6 or 12 months throwing loads of stuff at the wall, hoping it's going to stick, or they've hired a marketing team. This happened, funny enough, with a client. They hired a big global team, and they had someone in Germany and someone in Spain, like a general manager. And when we spoke to them, they said, yeah, but the software doesn't work in our market. It's going to be 6 to 12 months before we get that. Well, why are you going after those 2 markets? Park those. So it happens all the time. Being able to turn back the clock and say, I wish we'd done this earlier. It's a difficult sales message because effectively they've paid other people loads of money to do stuff and we say, you should have done this 6 months ago. But there we go. And there are 2 sort of models I want to share with you, the things that we use practically to tease them out, and they're not complicated at all. I'm not going to take you through them in detail. But the first one is, and there's loads of variations of this type of model. We call it a strategic screenplay, plan on a page, whatever you want to call it. But literally we use that to guide us. as we work through that with the client. So, where the client wants to get to is, what are we going to do? What are we going to do down here? And we're like, hang on a second, where do you want to go? And can you quantify some of those goals? So, really straightforward strategic planning, but done, in the right way, because so much of the strategic planning is done just because we have to do it every year. But if you've got a big problem you're trying to tackle, this isn't a budgeting exercise, this is a thinking exercise. So we walk the client through this. We facilitate them to come up with the answers with some injection of our own brain power. We're the ones who are prodding them and saying, not quite sure that's going to work. That class, have you thought about ... So that's a really good model. And then this one we use a lot when we're doing proposition and messaging, again, which is really, really straightforward. What you offer, products and services, to who? Great, who's your ideal customer? But this is the bit where the brain has to really get engaged more than, why does it matter? Why on earth would anybody care that you've got the lightest, thinnest solar membrane known to man? Why does it matter? And what's the context? So, what's going on internally? Do you have a hockey stick sales curve because you're a startup and you've just had Series A, B, C, D, whatever funding, and you're looking at a massive sales, or are you a business that actually wants to just get organic growth? Because all of that has an influence over what you want to do. So those are the two kind of key models we use to engage our brains to help clients get strategic clarity. So working out in that space, that's an area we work out. But the thing with all of this is these models, they're all very great, but they don't build anything. And this is one of my favorite kind of pieces of communication. You are the people who have to make this stuff happen. The models don't. So I like to think of them as scaffolding for the brain. And the last bit is around creativity. And if come back to this original quote here, if you've done your workouts with the customer and you've got the clarity, this is the bit where you can really show off your muscles, right? Yeah, you've done the hard work, okay? And you should be able to, if you're going to work with an external agency, brief them really well because you're clear on what the problems are and what you need to do. You should be able to know what the customer's looking for in terms of when you get messaging, when you get collateral coming back, when you're putting campaigns in. All of this becomes much more efficient, and we talk about that a lot. Why would you do a project with us to go through 1 and 2? Well, the real answer is because when you get here, you can do it much more quickly and efficiently, and you can be more confident that it's going to work. So you can move to action more quickly. So when it comes to creativity, I've touched a bit on the brain, the left and the right side, talked about the funnel, and I thought just kind of, I'm not, I don't run a creative business, I run more of a thinking business, but I wanted to just give you some examples where you can sort of see this creativity coming to life. And there's loads of examples everywhere out there. But kind of just give you some ideas and also giving you some things to think about. So practically, if you're in B2B, I don't know, how many of you anyone read B2B, Boring to Brave? Anyone in B2B? It's a really, really good book. Mark Schwaker, he used to be the editor of Marketing Week. And the one thing that I remember really vividly from that book, and I think this is quite interesting, it's quite a challenge, is in order to move from boring to brave, you have to be prepared to get fired, which I thought was quite that was quite an insight, because that is the challenge. That is the challenge. But I think this podcast, anyone listen to that? Let's make this more interesting. It's run by the guys who run Eat Big Fish, and they run a challenger brand consultancy. And the guy who runs that has interviewed, I think they've got 12 episodes, and he talks to people from all walks of life. So it's not marketers, there are some marketing people, but he talks to a teacher about how do you make physics interesting to a class of students who don't, when literally half the class don't want to know. There's some really good analogies there with the general marketplace, right? He talks to Maz Farrelly, who basically set up Britain's Got Talent. And she said, everything's a production. So you need to make sure that when you're, whatever you're doing, it's a production. Think about it. And how do you make yourself, it's your job to make yourself more interesting. It's not the job of the audience to be interested in you. I think that's quite an interesting insight. So literally on the way home, you've got Spotify, you fire that up, it's really great. They also have a brilliant, there's a brilliant session with a guy on PowerPoint, literally a 15-minute masterclass, and it's hilarious when you listen to it, but it's so obvious. So there's some really good ideas there to kind of just think about and get you thinking more creatively. Two other things that we have the luxury of doing quite a lot because we work with different clients, different sectors, not spending all day on back-to-back Zoom meetings, going from, anyway. But we look up a lot, and we see stuff going out. I come on the, see a lot of the TMM stuff, and we have the ability to just absorb some of that, and then at some point you go, that thing I saw there, I could probably use it somewhere else. But you need to have seen the thing in the first place to be able to use it somewhere else. And ABC, what do you think that stands for? A for, it's a phrase. Always. If you're in sales, it would be always be closing, but it's not. It's always be curious. Just be curious. And I think that's what's great about these things today is, you've come along and hopefully, I've helped you spark some of your curiosity. Just to finish off, I'm just going to show you a number of sort of different examples that I think are really interesting ways of bringing a bit more emotion, a bit more right brain in terms of top of funnel. The first things are ads, but it's not just about, I'm not just going to show you ads, because I think that's a tendency. Everyone goes, oh, look at the ad. And most businesses go, I can't afford to make an ad. At best we might make an explainer video. But I think this is an example from Indeed in India, and it uses humour really well. So the insight behind these ads is actually in India, people tend to recruit friends and family into the businesses. Not always the best idea.
ये नया मेंटेनेंस हेड इंडीड से हायर किया था?
नहीं सर, वो मेरे पड़ोसी का भाई।
अगली बार इंडीड से हायर करना।
इंडीड सर।
अच्छा, वो नया फॉकलिफ्ट ऑपरेटर इंडीड से हायर किया?
मेरे चाचा के लड़के को हायर किया मैडम, बहुत होशियार है।
अगली बार इंडीड से हायर करना।
इंडीड मैडम। अरे क्या कर रहे हैं?
Just makes me chuckle. And then, take it back to B2B and some stuff that maybe a lot of you do, copywriting. So this was the copy on a website for a client I was talking to. We've got this great business. What do you do? This is what they do. And there will be hundreds and thousands of pieces of copy out there. And this is on their website. It's like, I don't really know what you do, but I've dug a bit deeper. I go, what about if we said something like this? What about if we said something like this? Because that's what it really does. You can't get a mobile signal, but you can with our technology. Brilliant, fantastic. It doesn't need to be end-to-end data services. It just means there's loads of places where you can't get a mobile signal. If you've got a water filtration plant in the middle of a desert, there's not great Wi-Fi there. We didn't end up working with them in the end. This is, there's just some classic, these are, again, pretty old, just really light touch use of humour to engage with people. I think humour is really powerful, hence the stand-up comic link. I quite like that one. And this one was kind of poking fun at, typical car advertising. So again, if you can find something to kind of counter your positioning, that really helps. We did it with some IT businesses. Journey to the cloud was a thing. It's like, wow, journey to the cloud. But and that's what most people do think. Oh, we're going to be in the cloud. Brilliant. What if it's no good? And then this one, digital transformation. We're big in digital transformation. I'm bored of that. Tell me something else. And they went on, this particular business used that. Their positioning became, let's have a different conversation off the back of that insight. And that worked really well. So it comes back to, when I put all this together, kind of what's the message here? And I think the message for everybody in the room as marketeers, the thing, it's so easy to be distracted. Technology, AI, this, that, the boss, everything going on, that we forget that we've got these really powerful things in here called our brains. And if we can use them really effectively, they will help us grow our businesses. So make sure you get a workout. Make sure you put it in those areas, and remember, it is irreplaceable. Thank you very much.